Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Schnard. I'm here with Glen Willis, Tyler Jones. We're recording on a Saturday, a few days before the NBA draft, and one day before Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's been a long time since we've had a Game 7 in the finals. They don't come along too often. Glenn's prediction is still alive.
Glenn called
Glenn,
it.
Glenn, how likely do you think that you're going to come out looking super sharp after this one?
I mean, I feel like the Thunder probably win. Qualify this. I don't root for my picks. I make the picks based upon my analysis. I don't root for them because if you sit there and just root for your pick, you're not enjoying the series. So I try to set that aside, make that a secondary thing. I just thought, I just thought the Pacers play more connected basketball in a lot of ways than the Thunder do. But when the Thunder are turning you over, it's hard to beat them. And so I feel like it's always going to come back to that thing. I think there's one game the Pacers overcame their turnover issue. That was game 1 and won that game. But it's hard to win in Oklahoma City. Game 7, the pressure really ramps up. So I guess it's going to come down to, and the Pacers are playing more veterans right now than OKC. And they've leaned in towards our one of our favorites, Tony Bradley, and TJ McConnell's given them a ton, things like that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see which team kind of deals with the Game 7 pressure the best, to see who wins. But I think Oklahoma City definitely has an edge, kind of playing for that home crowd. I think that'll kind of keep their energy up, and things like that. So but I'm just going to try to enjoy the game.
What are you looking forward to t tomorrow, Tyler?
Uh, Looking forward to. I'm not looking forward to much. I don't care for either of these teams personally, but the basketball's been too good, so you just gotta watch. I don't know. OKC is kind of in knots, like on both ends of the floor right now, primarily because they can't get stops without Chet on the floor defensively. And then offensively, he is just an absolute train wreck. Like this is, it's funny. I think I said this on the pod, and I know I said this on Blue Sky and Twitter that I'm watching Chet. And I'm like, man, he's just Mo Gay out there on offense. And I'm gonna be honest, offensively, he might be worse right now because like Mo would at least understand he can't take Miles Turner off the dribble. I don't. I'm not it feels like Chet's forcing the issue a little too much on the offensive end. It really hurts that he has a flat jump shot and he's being guarded by a bigger player who's quick enough to contest his shots in Miles Turner. And so he's just like completely been mollified. Now, Miles Turner's not that good on offense either, so they're kind of canceling each other out. But Miles at least, picks his spots better. He's just a like at the moment, he's just playing significantly better basketball, even if the percentages are similar, shooting wise between the two. So, like, Chet's turned into a problem. Case and Wallace, who's a good player, but like when he's out there, TJ McConnell just sees food. Like, it's just, he is too small to guard TJ McConnell. There is one way to guard TJ, and Case and Wallace does not have the physical capabilities to do it. And so, like, the Thunder need but it goes. It's a point like one of the Thunder's real weaknesses as a team is that they don't really have small forward, power forward size players. They have two centers in Chet and Hardenstein, and then a bunch of guards, and like it's works for them right up until they play in this Pacers team that always plays five guys who know how to do something with the ball in their hands. So at any point, you got an Obi Toppin being guarded by a guard, and like Obi's just finishing over the top of him, or he's creating space in the post for a drive for one of the guards. Like they're kind of getting into a lot of bad matchups on defense, and it bleeds into their offense because their offense relies so much in scoring in transition, scoring with advantages. Like because they've taken that away, SGA is just having a harder time in the half court because he's not attacking advantages like he usually does. And so it's a like to me, it's a coin flip. Like it's just going to come down to who's going to make their open threes. In Game 7, um, who's going to get the loose balls, who's going to play harder, who's going to be. It's going to come down to some luck. Now the Thunder have played a lot better at home than the road, so we'll see if that carries over. They really need like somebody other than Jalen. If they get one more person besides Jalen and SGA to step up and play well, I think they still have the overwhelming. They still have the talent advantage, but without all like 8 to 10 guys the Pacers are playing, like it's going to be a tough battle.
Yeah, I agree with you with Wallace. It's not like he's a bad player, but he kind of duplicates what they already have in a lot of ways. And the Thunder just need one more player with a skill set that kind of diversifies what they have. They're not deep enough. There are so many players on that roster that Daniel doesn't want to play. Like you could tell, like he wants to play these six guys. I think it's six. Maybe he gets to seven. Uh, and then once he gets to like Wiggins, like he doesn't really want to play him. And so it's like they have the ability to go do something and get one more player. They absolutely have to do that before this next season. Regular season record be damned. Like they're just not deep enough for what they want to do in the playoffs. Even if they win, like they might win, certainly. I mean, they're the favorite at this point
Yeah,
still. But like it's just such an easy fix for what, it's not that hard for them to fix this problem and then be so much more likely to win next year. Um, what do you make of Miles Turner's finals? Like it seems like he kind of comes and goes. I can't tell if he's like hurt or not. When you watch Miles Turner in this series, what are you thinking?
I mean, for me, I mean, it's nice to have a big who can shoot. I think we can argue about how good of a shooter is he really, but for his position, he's a plus shooter. I think it's fair to kind of say that be. Um, but he's not the most physical big guy. Hart's when he gets on the floor with Hartenstein pushes him around constantly. Not the strongest rebounder. Indiana rebounds well as a when they're rebounding well, it's because they're doing it as a team to kind of overcome some of the limitations they have there. And Toppin, I feel like it's not ridiculous to say Toppin's given them a lot more in his minutes than Turner has. So Toppin is a monster on the offensive glass. He's been a more consistent shooter in the series. The speed he has, I mean, it's kind of funny. Uh, Going with the Wayback Machine, there were reports when Turner was in the draft class ahead of that draft that a lot of teams felt like they were going to have to teach him to run differently. And you watch him run up the floor, he's pigeon toe, he has a strange gait, and things like that. So it's gonna be interesting to see which way Carlisle goes. But Carlisle's not gonna mess around. Like if Miles isn't giving him what he needs, we might see just a ton of top end. We might see, a good bit of Tony Bradley, and so Carlisle doesn't mess around. I think on the Oklahoma City side, you're right. He's shortening it. He wants, Caruso and Shea and you know, Jalen and those guys kind of carry things, and stuff like that. But the depth the Pacers have just gives Carlisle more configurability based upon how things are going. And that's an edge they have on OKC, where OKC has, the MVP on their roster, and statistically across the regular season, they had one of the greatest historic seasons, historically, in a long time. But going back to Turner, Hawks fans have often wanted him. They kind of clamored for him, and I understand like shooting at the five is helpful, but I think sometimes depending upon how you're watching, he just really gets pushed around a lot because he doesn't like to play physically.
I'm not sure who wants to answer this, but what do you make of him as like a screener in the series with so many guys on Oklahoma City who are good at defending the point of attack? Like is he doing a good job in that regard, making space for his guards, or is it getting dicey?
I'll say honestly, um, he's gotten a lot better at that. Just to start, just the DHO stuff. Like he's actually become a really good passer in that operating in that role and really leveraging his shooting. to open some stuff up for his teammates. So I don't really have like offensively. I think he's actually playing pretty well. Again, even though the shooting is just whatever, but like he's doing his job on offense. It's really defensively. If it's not Chet that he's bullying, he can get in trouble. Like, and particularly if they can get him isolated in space or they have him guarding, higher up the floor, he gets in real trouble. So that's really where the problems lie with him. But when OKC offense is like in the mud, it's fine.
Hmm.
But like to your point, like Obi's outplaying him, and Carlisle's just like, all right, let's get Obi out here to get more burst. Let's get some more juice in here. Let's score some points, and really take advantage of OKC getting into these ruts on offense. So he's kind of just playing like Miles Turner. Like Turner's a fine player, but he's not somebody like NBA teams aren't clamoring for Miles Turner. Like I understand he's had a couple of good playoff games, but there's a reason why he's always been on the trade market and nobody's traded for him. Like he has been readily available for the entirety of his career. Nobody's really wanted him that much. The Pacers like him, but they would probably prefer a better, more physical basketball player at that position, or somebody who just offers a little bit more finishing juice, right? Like where, instead of what he does, which is again, if it's not Chet, who again, like Chet's got to get it together, but like if it's not Chet, like it's just like, all right, you took this fadeaway 15-footer. Sure, bro, you made two of those in a row. Like make five. Eh, We don't care. Like you can take as many jump shots as you want, even open 3-pointers. Like as long as you're not Clint Capella and you're like mobile defensively, most centers can close out to him and then like take away his driving lane because he's not the fastest or burstiest person. So, like to me, I think he's just playing to his level, and I think it's a credit to Carlisle that he's not sticking with him when it doesn't work. When he sees he can take Turner off the floor, which is often when Chet leaves. He's like, yeah, let's get Obi in the game and let's go to work. So like that, it goes to it's a credit to the Pacers organization to stack certain talents like they took a risk. They didn't really necessarily they took a flyer on Obi Toppin and it's working out for him. And he's in the really the entirety of the playoffs. And they also took a flyer on Aaron Nesmith and it's working out for him. Combined with all the other things they've done, like it's a credit to their organization, to their structure that they're getting such high level production from guys that 29 other teams could have acquired fairly easily. That every team would want.
Yeah, on that note, it's like when people talk about the best executives in the game, like Sam Presti obviously comes up for understandable reasons, and other guys, but Kevin Pritchard's good, man. He's done some good work, and under the radar, and he's never out. I think about like the on the other spectrum, like Daryl Morey, kind of doing a ton of press availability all the time, and kind of talking about this and that, and that dude, I don't know if he just like stays locked in the closet in the team facility, but like he's never out, beating his chest and kind of being bragging about his own work. He's opportunistic, and when he's had a chance to add players that help them from a depth perspective and kind of give their team something different, he pounces. And the Siakam trade obviously was a huge win for them, but Tyler's exactly right. Toppin has helped them, and I need a physical center. I might be able to play and play. Oh, let's get Tony Bradley in here. And you have to think that he and Carlisle are in lockstep around what are our gaps and how can we close them, even if it's a guy who might play some games and not play some games. So I think he's one of the most underrated execs in the league.
Tony Bradley was such a difference maker in Game 6. Like again, 30 teams could have got him. The Hawks could have. We talked about Tony Bradley ad nauseum, but like he Tony, like he doesn't play. He hasn't played every game in the series, but he really put it together. Game 6, where he was just like, I'm going to be the more physical player, and I'm going to force the issue. And like, if credit to like the Pacers in general, they were just like, we're going to play as hard as we can. If the referees aren't going to, we're going to go. They basically copied what OKC does on defense. But as you know, they're the bigger team. So can they replicate that will be interesting because that's a high intensity, and depending on who's refereeing, it could backfire very quickly on you to play that way. So I think they gamble. It was one of those things where their backs against the wall, they're going to gamble, and the gamble paid off in Game 6. Now what are they going to do in Game 7 with probably a different referee crew who they're probably going to play it more straight compared to what Game 6, because they probably don't want the at the end of the day, they don't want like I know I'm saying that like, oh, the Thunder didn't get called. I'm just saying in general, the NBA doesn't want the series to come down to officiating. They just want it. They probably want the cleanest finals as they want. They don't want terrorism basketball to take over for either team. So we'll see how that goes. But I think it is a winning formula for them to try to outmuscle, particularly both of Chet and Hartenstein. Because if they can do that, the rest of the Thunder are below 6'5". So it's a way to like impose your will on a more talented team, and I think that's a pathway to success.
Yeah, I agree. Like especially with the bigs. Like I think like with the guards, it's probably not going to carry over to game seven, but with the bigs, it's a lot of stuff that's off the ball. They don't want to stop the play for that. And like you said, the Oklahoma City just doesn't have the depth with their bigs. So like you can lean on them, you can grind on them, you can wear them down. You might still be able to get away with that side of it in game seven where you won't with the guards. Like if you're trying to do it with Shea, it's not going to work. So yeah. I have to say that we usually record at night. We're recording during the day today. And so and we don't do video, but with our Zoom setups here, Glenn is like sitting in front of a window and he's got like this red dot on his forehead. And I keep thinking like he's got a hit out on him, like somebody's trying to shoot him and trying to hit him with the scope. I'm like over here praying for your safety, Glenn.
The weird thing this camera does. So yeah, it's funny, but yeah, but former military, I know how to spot a sniper, so I should be good
Okay,
to go.
good, 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 good. The NBA draft is coming fast. So we'll keep grinding on this list here. See if we can get a few more guys out of the way. How do you feel about Liam McNeely? I don't know who wants to
Well,
start.
so my draft profile of him hit Peace Free Hoops today, and the comments are kind of making me laugh. They're like, oh, they're quoting his shooting numbers at UConn, but if you go to read the best telling you evaluators, they'll tell you he was a big time shooter at the prep level, right? And that they're not worried about it. And the commenters can say whatever they want. I'm not going to get upset about it, or mostly I'll look at them to see if anybody's asking a question. I can follow up on stuff like that. But yeah, he's a high level processor, and he's a guy who's kind of fit the NBA scheme, moves the ball, all those sorts of things. Decent athlete, not a high end athlete, but decent enough athlete, and it kind of brings enough size. So he's one of those guys that I think he's going to could be a pretty high level supporting player by like year three. Once he just kind of gets plugged into the NBA. I don't think he's a guy who's going to play a ton on the ball and stuff like that. But he's going to be a guy where ball doesn't stick. He makes quick decisions, reads the floor, and I think even though he struggled shooting wise at UConn, I think playing in one of the best motion offenses across NCAA is going to help him be a little more ready for what the teams do in the NBA, kind of in that way. So I feel like he's going to be, I don't know, he's kind of he gets mocked at like close to like 14 in some drafts. You see him otherwise in the low 20s. And so I think he's a guy that's going to really depend on how the draft goes, where he gets picked. But for a team that wants a mature guy, was in good processing and a good shooting track record outside of the college season, I think he's an interesting guy to add.
What do you
I
think,
just
Tyler?
wish he was taller, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he was,
I
or
wish I was taller
because
too.
yeah, me too. But like for his game in particular, it just felt like at UConn, he was in a different role. Like they were asking him to be the primary creator on UConn, and that's just not what he's going. Like he's just playing out of position on offense. However, if he's not going to be the primary guy and he's going to be a guy off ball, he might be a little too small for that to play, you know, where it's like you can only play him in certain lineups. If I'm trying to make sense, like think I'm not trying to compare him to Max Strus, but kind of similar in that, you know, Strus has turned himself into a good defender and a very good offensive player overall, but like you probably don't want Strus being your biggest wing, right? So that's like my thing with Liam. Like you probably want Liam as your second wing, but uh you know, how many minutes can you get away with somebody like Liam on the floor next to a Trey Young? That's why I'm like, I don't know. Even though I think he's fine defensively, um, there's some. It's just not. He's not that good of an athlete, and he's also not that big either. And the shot didn't go in as well at the college range. And again, I think the shot will go in at the NBA level, but like if it's going to the ideal role would be for him to be a power, but I don't think he has the size to play that position on defense. But offensively, I think that's where he would really excel, where he's picking and popping and he's spaced out to the corner against bigger players. Like that's where he'd be at his best. But I think for him to survive, he's got to play more like a guard, which is what he did at UConn, where he wasn't good. So like it's kind of double-edged sword with him right there. But like he's worth a flyer in the back end of the first round because the pedigree and the shooting talent.
Yeah, I to kind of pick up with your Cavs analogy, like you want him to be bigger, and it's like if you look at the Cavs, like Max Strus and Ty Jerome are kind of the same size, if you will, like height wise, but like Strus plays with a different level of like physicality that
He's
allows him
strong.
to play in more situations, right? And then
And
Ty
he, and,
Jerome is just like he's just teams go through him. And to me, McNeely, he's so young, but like he looks like a guy that teams are just going to go through. Like Glenn said, he's a really good processor, and that extends to like defense too. He makes quick decisions. Like he knows where he's supposed to be. He goes and he does it. But it's like the play doesn't quite get finished because he just doesn't have the athleticism to pull it off. So like
yeah,
at the NBA ranks, teams are just gonna like if he's out there guarding the corner shooter from the weak side and he's supposed to be the help defender at the rim, teams are like, that's what we want. Like they're gonna try to get him there because he'll make the right read and he'll come to try to make a play at the rim, but he just won't have like the athleticism to like finish a contest or finish a defensive rebound while holding somebody off. I don't know that he has that kind of physicality. Like if he was like 2 inches taller or something, you might see it working a little bit better. But for me, especially on the defensive end, it's hard to see him at that size working out without being a real liability.
if he was either 2 inches taller or a better athlete, like because like
Yeah.
Strus is a really good athlete. Like
Yeah.
that's where there's the big separator where it's like Strus will 100% dunk on somebody if they're not ready for it. So it's just one of those things. I don't think Liam has that level of burst
No.
on either end of the floor.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, but you're somebody who's with an 8'4" standing reach. That means you're a one position player. You know, there's just certain lineups we can't play you on. And so then how much are you going to play and help a team win during an 82 game season if every time I have you out there in suboptimal lineups, we're getting drugged because you're a liability out there. So that's where a lot of teams are probably like, he's he had to have been good at the role he was at UConn for us to be happy with taking him in the lottery. But because he was so bad, you know, offensively, he's a support player. But if he's a support player, he's not good enough defensively. Like for for as good as a shooter he might be, we can find a better defender who's just as good or just as valuable on the offensive end, who can process the game in the same way. He might not be as good a shooter as you are, but like we'd rather take a flyer on somebody with more athletic juice or burst than Liam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's low man. Zubac is rolling to the rim. He has no shot to impact that, right? Or Mitchell Robinson or those types, he has no shot. And you can overcome some of that with really, really good technique. Um, But there are still times when like the best rim finishers in the league, guys like him, had no shot to really impact that play.
Not
That's
just the
something that he,
best. He's going to have, I feel like he's going to struggle in that role against like 75% of the league. Like there's
yeah,
like, I don't see him like, I'm not worried. I mean, the elite gut finishers are going to be elite finishers for, he's not even close to that to me. Like I don't think like just the average finisher, he's going to struggle to like go contest that. Oh, what was I going to, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I like there's still an outcome where he's a successful NBA player. Like
for sure.
if he becomes like a real big time like motion shooter, like then he could still be a useful player. But it's just that seems like that's a hard thing to gamble on. I feel like
Yeah,
that's one of the most difficult things to project.
Because the thing about shooting on an NBA floor is it's the speed at which the game is played and the length at which defenders close out against you. And it's like you got to be so good of a shooter, you know, to be able to be a movement shooter that teams respect. Like Bogey, like I want to use Bogdanovich as my biggest example. 2021, he was elite at movement shooting. Like Kyle Korver-esque, like coming off the pin downs, coming off screens, like jumping, firing away, like dominant, dominant off movement shooter, and he hasn't been that level of shooter since. Like once the athleticism went with all the injuries, like he can't do that anymore. So he has to play differently, and it has had to adjust his game. Cameron Herter has never been able to do that as a shooter. Like he's never had the athletic ability to come off the screen and just fire. You know, get his body in proper rotation. Like that is a hard skill to learn, and there are very few basketball players in the game today just because defenders are so good at like NBA defenses are so good at taking away what you want to do. And so like teams will live with somebody taking a fall away 3-point shooter, if they're not elite at it. And so like if you're not elite, they're not going to change the defense. And so then we're going to run this set for a 35% chance you're going to take the shot. Like it's only worth it if you're making 40%. And there's going to be contests. So it's just one of those. It's a tough lane to fill, and I don't know if Liam has the contortion ability to get there as a movement shooter if that's the route he's trying to go.
Yeah. All right. Neat Clifford. I think this is interesting because it's like, how do you compare a 19-year-old to a 23-year-old? It seems like such a they're not even necessarily like the same position, maybe, but like they just seem like they're from two different universes, and it's like hard to like he's almost as old as Jalen Johnson, but with that just a different kind of player. But what do you think of Neat
yeah.
Clifford?
I mean, I think his defensive upside is huge, right? Um, really good athlete. The question is, do NBA teams think they can teach him to do enough on offense? Because he's pretty limited on that side of the floor. Can he make open corner threes? Can he make the thing on the catch? You know, and those things. So that's the divide there. But you look at this draft class, you try to figure out who the best, I don't know, 7 or 8 defensive prospects are in this class, and he's in that group. For me, and we've talked about the Hawks need physical defenders. The Hawks need some defenders with size, and he's a versatile guy. He can probably defend 3 positions, maybe more. But again, it's going to come down to can he do can in year by year 2, maybe maybe a little quicker because he's a little older, maybe he catches on a little more quickly. But what teams project they can get him to do on offense will really determine where he goes. That's why he's being right now mocked like mid 20s, or so, is because of the offensive limitations. But there's a handful of teams that think I could teach anybody to shoot. We could teach anybody to shoot, and if all they want is him to kind of stand in the weak side corner and make the shot when the ball gets passed to him, and then let him be an emerging defender, high level defender in the league, guy worth taking a shot on, perhaps.
Tyler?
It's interesting. Uh, David Lee, he talks about Nick Clifford a lot because he liked his statistical profile. He was really good at Colorado State last year overall as overall player. Like he kind of did a bit of everything for that team. He was basically their engine on both ends of the floor. He often compares him to Josh Hart and like particularly his rebounding. And I can see that, but I can only see it so much, primarily for this reason. Josh Hart has bigger shoulders. Like he's a more rounded player, and he's able to like move guys out the way to gain position. I don't know if Nick Clifford is that big, right? Like, he doesn't have the greatest wingspan, and he's not like if he's over. I doubt he's over 205 pounds, like if that. But he's already 23 years old, so like physically, he's probably at where he's going to be for the rest of his career. Like, he's not going to gain more weight here,
No.
and so his type of game, I don't know if that's going to translate at the next level, as well as it did in college. Not saying he can't be good. So like it's going to come down to you got to really believe in his defense. Like to me, his point of attack defense, because every team could use high end point of attack defenders, and like can he turn himself into um, an Aaron Nimhard type of defender, where it's like I'm at
Wait,
the
is that
point of
Aaron
attack.
Neesmith or Andrew Nemhart? You got to pick.
Andrew Nimhard, Andrew Nimhard, not Neesmith. Neesmith's a little bigger. Nimhard, where he's a guard type of, guard, off guard type player, who guards at the point of attack, kind of what Dyson Daniels does. That's kind of the role I see him as, less of the forward role, because I just don't think he's big enough to play forward. I think he's more of a guard. That's where my thing is. But if you're going to be a guard, you got to be able to shoot it. And so, like, the question is, will the jumper translate on an NBA floor? That's something I don't know from right here. But at 22, I'd have no problem with the Hawks taking him at 22, uh, just because like the production was there, and I think some of the stuff will translate to the next level. It's just there's a reason why I would not take him in the lottery, though. Just there are better gambles to take there, and like honestly, I have a couple more players rated more highly than he is at 22. But like again, if the Hawks take him there, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's just it's a very low upside bet to me because there's always an unrestricted free agent, who fits this archetype of player who could do similar things. And that's where it comes in with Neek, where because he's so old and like the jumpers, like we're not talking about a Cedric Coward level jump shot here. Like because it probably won't translate to the next level in a high, volume way. Would you rather, even though he's safer than an unrestricted free agent, wouldn't you rather gamble on an unrestricted free agent and teach him to get up to Nick Clifford's level, who's probably younger even? That's where I'm at with Nick overall. But he is a good player, and like I think if you just want, I want somebody I'm comfortable with playing 15 minutes a night, take him. I'd have no problem with that. I'm just of the opinion of let's try to develop younger players and see where they are in 2 to 3 years.
His
All
his
right.
combine measurements were 6'5" and a quarter, no shoes, 202, 6'8" wingspan.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that he's one of those guys that once you get out of college and the floor is just a little bit more spaced, like I'm putting multiple contingencies on this, but like if he elevates his shooting a little bit, like his ability to attack closeouts will translate better because he's in a role where he's got a little bit more space and a little bit less defensive attention that works for him.
Could be, could be. Yeah, and if 22, I think he's a fine guy to have in the mix. I would say I was, to like hone in on him as the guy. I think that would be a mistake, but it completely depends on how the draft flows. From 1 to 21. in terms of who else is there. If Fleming is still on the board and they take, Clifford, then that would be a mistake to me, for an example.
All right. All right. We'll go back to the finals here to finish. I need your prediction for game 7. Go ahead, Glenn.
I'm rolling Pacers.
Any notable thing you think is going to happen?
Um, I mean, it's just gonna be interesting to see how much OKC tries to force the ball through Shea, and a lot to come down to, you know, his counterpart Jalen. If Jalen can put up 30, OKC probably wins. But we'll have to see.
Tyler?
I'm gonna go OKC. I think they're just gonna play better at home, and it's just gonna carry them, particularly the younger guys.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be Shea's signature game. I think it's coming.
Most importantly, enjoy the freaking game.
There we go. All right. Good night, Bob.
I
Good night,
know.
Bob.